lately? It's Coons. What have y'all done for us lately? And if there's no answer, the only thing we owe them.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to Let's Talk 2. And tonight, it's Tuesday night. We usually, every other Tuesday, we have Chief Mimi here. And unfortunately, she's not here tonight to join us. But we also have our regular co-host slash guest slash advisor. I got to mess with her, y'all. Friend of the show. Um, Miss Nassau.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Miss
Good evening, everybody.
Nassau. We got Sister Azima here as usual. And we're going to have a conversation. And really, you guys, the conversation can go in any direction that you guys would like it to go. Me and Sister Azima, like we said, we're going over understanding, some things when it comes to the 14th Amendment. But today we're just take another look in what constitutional law, codes, policies, regulations, statutes. Because a lot of times we don't understand or get quite a good picture. Definitely with so many politicians, both sides mentioning, "Oh, this is against the Constitution," and they're playing on their base, being not knowing what's going on by saying, "Oh, they're doing something against the Constitution," and then there's to make it seem like to you and I that they're breaking the law, number one, and breaking the Constitution, like, oh, they're doing something so egregious, and it's just not factually true. Uh, a lot of times the Constitution is very plain and simple. It's broad, but it's plain and simple, and its interpretation and understanding of the Constitution, this is what the justices have to do with trying to interpret and what the intended was for any amendment or anything within the Constitution. So, with that, Sister Azima, is it hot out there? Is this hot as much as it is in Pennsylvania? It should be, right?
The temperature is 85, but our humidity is 72%.
Oh,
Yeah. So and everybody is still reeling from, our tornado. And
yeah, we had got so much rain the last few weeks now. For it not to be rainy, it's a miracle.
not to be rainy.
Yeah, I'm sick of the rain. But I have my trip. One trip is planned. My trip to Florida. I'll be going to Florida next month for a few days
Okay.
on business. On business. On
Mhm.
business. Um, I might do a broadcast down there. I don't know. It's strictly business. It's more personal. It has nothing to do with what we do here. But maybe I'll take some people with me, as I say, on this journey down to Florida. I'm only going to North Florida. I'm not going to South Florida. I got family in St. Lucia County.
Mm.
I'm not even going to go see them. I'm going to take care of business, and next thing you know, I'll be back. I'm actually driving, so
Mm.
it's going to be an interesting trip.
Yeah, that will be. Okay, everybody.
It's only 14 hours.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I get to stop in my favorite state, which is my favorite state on the East Coast is North Carolina. I love that place.
Okay.
Yeah, love it, love it.
Hmm. Hmm. I
My
might have.
one time, no, I was in DC a couple times.
Uh-huh.
DC is a nice place. I got to go down there to see our buddy Dr. Short. I'm, but I actually I'm avoiding North Carolina. The way that I drive to South, I avoid Delaware, DC. I avoid all that. I cut through the back roads of Maryland. So yeah, yeah, I'll be going in the back route. So y'all pray for me. I know the sundown towns. I know the sundown towns. So y'all pray for a brother.
Oh Lord, yeah, they. And this is 2025, and we still got sundown towns.
Ain't that something?
That is.
So what's going on for tonight?
We're just having an open conversation. I do want to reiterate that we did speak on divine law. We spoke on natural law, okay, organic law. We spoke on constitutional law, and we spoke on the law of peace. The purpose I say, the purpose of me reiterating that is that under the United States of America, the corporation, most of the things that you do here are based on policies, regulations, codes, and statutes. Um, and I had some videos that I wanted to show just for you to really see what I am inferring to. And then you can think through your mind, well, something like that happened to me or a friend. And now I realize that that might just have been policies or regulations. I remembered my daughter is now 40. So when she was 10, about 30 years ago, my youngest daughter and I were in the car at a grocery store, came out of the grocery store parking lot, was putting my seatbelt on as I was coming out of the parking lot. She already had a seatbelt on, made my left turn, and a police officer followed me. In one of those, at that time, many of the police departments in the small towns were patronage. So they got their position because they knew somebody, or their dad was there, or a cousin, or an uncle, or a brother. And that's how they became a police officer. Had no formal training. Did go to the city of St. Louis to learn how to handle a firearm, but there was no law for them to learn. It wasn't mandatory. So the police officer whipped around, turned his lights on. I make a left turn onto a street, pull over, and he was a white guy, young, and he's filling his oats. And he's yelling at me or being highly aggressive. And all I said to him was, "Sir, can you show me the law as it is written?" It was some type of seatbelt thing. I said, "I have my seatbelt on." And he wanted to argue with it. I said, "Well, I didn't argue with you." I said, "I'm just asking you to show me the law." He pulled his gun out.
Mm.
And I said, "You're going to shoot me because you can't show me the law?" And so I realized I had my daughter in the car, and I just stepped back, mentally stepped back. He wrote me a ticket, went to court. The judge didn't want to talk to me because all I asked was to show me the law. He couldn't show me the law. The police officer couldn't show me the law. So they gave me two more tickets. I went to, got an attorney. The attorney went in there and took care of it. And they pretty much told me I couldn't be driving around up in there. You know, they started harassing me. So I had some people in a higher authority of policies, rules, and regulations, and I contacted them. And I wanted that police officer moved. He was. So that's when you realize that these are just policies and codes. And in many small areas, they these small towns, they do not have a system in place. Just your major cities have a system in place that lets people know that these police officers are trained. And that's where you will see accreditation or something written on the side of the police car. It's telling you that they have gone to school. And they are now requiring police officers to take law license,
Hmm.
go to school to learn about law, constitutional law, and criminal law, not tort law. Tort law is where businesses and people argue with each other. Okay, so people get what we see is that because there is no training, many of the young police officers, male or female, black, white, Asian, whatever, they become hyped. They become hyped because the superior police officers tell them that they have to prove themselves. Okay, like you do for the military. You have to prove yourself. And the way you prove yourself is that you scope your people out and you pick the person you know won't have a lot of fight. So he picked me because I had, children in the car. It's a black female. I was older than him. And all I asked him was, show me the law. I always ask when I get stopped, show me the law. And they can't show it to you, but they become angry. And I'm sure a lot of places still do bait and switch, uh,
Hmm.
that tactic where they claim that they're doing a sobriety check, but they're really checking for insurance on your car and if your driver's license is valid. They're not doing a sobriety check. And that depends on your state, if that is a legal process. Also, in the state, it depends on whether or not your city has a system like that in place. So you may have these major cities, and every place the major cities touch, those become the suburbs or sub cities. Many of those officers are not equipped and are not trained and have no background. Those are patronage jobs. Somebody went out and worked real hard to get the mayor elected or the chief of police elected, and I owe them a job. I owe them a favor. And those are patronage jobs. Most of your cities will run on patronage jobs, and they had to create regulations, statutes, policies, and codes because people could come in there and say, you're violating my rights on the Constitution. And 90% of the employees have no idea what the Constitution was, what the laws were, and if they were violating anything. So they had to come up with policies, statutes, regulations, codes, and procedures. And with that, if you would notice, they would always have a big book on the counter and they could flip through that book and tell you, well, according to this statute right here, according to this regulation over here, you violated this, that, and the other. And later on, you realize that the system, the Corporation of the United States of America, they don't have a way to say that they're not violating your rights. They have never lived up to any aspect of any treaty, any law. They basically get in here and do what they want to do. And
You
that's
guys in the you guys in the chat, if you live in a very, very rural area, uh, put the thumbs up. No, put a one in the chat, because what she's speaking about, you definitely gonna see it in a rural area where it might be five police, where basically you may have the chief, and you may have two people who are quote unquote administrators. You may have a judge that comes there once a month, or you may go to the county seat, and you don't even have a fire department. You basically got volunteer fire to police. I don't live in that type of city, but I work in those type of cities a lot. And what she's saying is exactly the truth. What happens, and it's so much so that they actually the state police actually police those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And when the state police can't do it, because sometimes state police got other stuff to do, accidents on the major
Mm-hmm.
interstate or whatever, you may see that one cop who's basically his uniform doesn't even look up to date, and you'd be like,
Right.
is this really an officer?
Mm-hmm.
So saying that and understanding that, when Sister Azima was just talking, it brought me back to something. There's something in the Constitution a lot of people don't know. On our Fourth Amendment, Fourth Amendment for those that don't know, search and seizure.
Mm-hmm.
Most people hear search. But in that Fourth Amendment, they can legally lie to you.
Mm-hmm. They can. They have that right. They are
They can
encouraged to
legally they can legally lie to you
lie. Mm-hmm.
to get, if they feel like it's a crime or whatever, or commission of a crime, they can legally lie to you. And the Supreme Court has upheld it,
Mm-hmm.
but they can lie to you. So they can tell you the sky is green if they think that that's going to get them to get you to say something that's going to incriminate yourself. So when we hear people say, keep your mouth shut, as
Mm-hmm.
the elders used to say, shut
Mm-hmm.
the F up,
Mm-hmm.
it's best that you just be quiet,
Mm-hmm.
because you will self-incriminate yourself dealing with these people. But Sister Azim, I just thought about that when you were talking about how none of them even know when they use this, and they go to what they call the Statutes annotated book, that black book that you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and they go to that book like they know, and they only know a couple pages because they only know one or two statutes within that book.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, you're good.
So I also told you all that since 9/11, we have been under martial law. I hope you all realize that they don't have to Mirandize you anymore. You know what the Miranda right is? That's where they have to read this statement so that you can get legal counsel or have legal counsel assigned to you if you can't afford an attorney. And that they always tell you anything that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They don't have to Mirandize you anymore. They can skip over that. So, what we're beginning to see is that as people come into knowledge and have the ability to understand that knowledge and start applying it. You know, it's like when you first start learning how to drive, you have to read the book, then you go out and sit in the vehicle and you have to learn where everything is. Although you've seen it over and over, when you're behind the wheel, you don't remember, the signals are over here. I have to do this over here with the windshield wipers. My lights are here. It's different. And once you can get the feel of being in the driver's seat, then you have application of knowledge. And that is what the current system doesn't want you to do. They don't want you to know how to apply the knowledge that you have. So do you think I'll be able to see that first video, the one
Which
about
one?
the one that the system that fails everyone? I wanted to show a video so you'd get a chance to. I want you to
Which
see
one?
it.
Which one was that? That was the. Oh man, let me
That
see.
should have been the first one I gave you. The system that fails everyone.
Just give me 1 second.
Okay. The reason I wanted you all to see, I had a bunch of videos, but we're gonna not try to get a strike. Well, I wanted you to see this one in particular because even though these are actors, if you close your eyes and hear what he is saying, that's the key thing. I want you to hear what he is saying. And what he is saying is so true. It's just so true. And now as you acquire the knowledge, you now realize that judges are just glorified lawyers. They
Hmm.
have to go back and take some courses for the judgeship, and they, go back and learn some things. They're either going to go back and learn constitutional law, which is a requirement, but they can also learn criminal law and tort law. Tort law deals with business. So um, the judges will go back and they will have to learn this, and they have to add that repertoire to their license as an attorney. And it moves them from Esquire to JD, where they are judicial representative now. So they have that ability to make a decision, but they're making the decision based upon how the United States of America is a corporation. The corporation is operating side by side with the Constitution, and they only intertwine when it's beneficial for the corporation to always remain in control. So, did you find that one?
Patience is running. Um, hold on one second.
Even if we don't see all of it,
No, I got it. I got it.
okay.
I got it. Sister Star, thank you for your support on the channel. Uh,
And so, like I'm saying, these are actors, but I just want you to hear what he is saying.
you want this one, right?
Your system. It's
Your patience has run out. That's what you said?
Jeffrey.
Is that what you just said? You out of patience.
Mr. Rollins, I would advise you not to speak.
Yeah, I got that advice 25 years ago from my public defendant. But this may be the only and last time I get to say my say in the courtroom. So
Jeffrey.
You talk about respecting the system. The system put me in here based on a lie. And now you're telling me I got a lie to get out? Is that the system you so respect?
Can
Well,
you
I didn't
stop
do
it for a minute? Okay. I want you all to walk back in your mind. What did he tell the man? He says, your system's a lie. You put me in here. And then he went on to say, if it wasn't for the grace of the guy who did the crime finally told you, you didn't care about getting me out. So now you can understand, if this was law, we couldn't do that. But because it's policies, regulations, codes, and statutes, they can.
And to give some background, I think that was a very interesting episode where basically what she needed him to do, they were going to give him basically time served for his charge.
Mm-hmm.
And what the judge needed him to do was admit to the crime, because admitting to the crime would have gave them the conviction to justify why he did the time that he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, he had got found guilty because he never admitted to the crime.
Mm-hmm.
So when anybody that knows anything about the judicial system, you can come back on appeal for various reasons. It could be witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
It could be some of the smallest little infractions that happen during your trial process that'll get you back in court. Once you get in court, once the appellate division sees the discrepancy, now the appellate court, what they do is they can reverse the verdict. They can't reverse the verdict. What they'll do is they'll put the verdict to the side and have you back in court. Then it's up to the prosecutor whether they want to retry you, give you a new trial or whatever. It could be some of the most small things. So then what happened, and what has happened in a lot of cases that we've seen in this country, where individuals were gone for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, they don't expect, when you get time like that, they don't expect you to live. Regardless of what they tell you, they do not expect nobody to live when they give them 50 years, as we see with Larry Hoover,
Yeah,
President Trump, pardoning Larry Hoover. They did not expect this man to
no.
be living this long.
Okay, so let's clarify that. Trump pardoned him from the federal prison.
From the federal, yeah.
He
And he
is
still got the
still
state to worry about.
right, right.
So
They're
what
going.
happens is before the pardon, hold on one second, Sister Azima. Before the pardon, when you go back in court for an appeal, it could be a direct appeal, it could be all types of things. We'll get into it one of these days. And what they'll do is they say insufficient evidence for the such and such or whatever, and then they'll say just cop out or we'll let you go home. In this role that Ed Harris is playing, he was somebody, as we would say, he stood on all 10. He was not going to admit to a crime that he didn't commit because it was the system. And this is the dialogue that they're having with their actress Kathy Bates.
Right.
Can we finish playing it?
Yes, please.
This may be the only and last time I get to say my say in the courtroom. So
Jeffrey.
you talk about respecting the system. The system put me in here based on a lie. And now you're telling me I got a lie to get out? Is that the system you so respect? Well, I didn't do it. I did not do it. I got to live with everybody thinking I did, even my own son. And now the guy who put me here, his conscience finally got the better of him, and you don't care. You just worried about your damn system. Well, tell me, when does conscience ever get the better of you? Your patience.
And as you guys see, that is an appellate division. Appellate division is more than one judge. It's usually 3 to 5 judges, or some states might be 5, some states might be 7. It's just like the Supreme Court. Same premise, same federal court system. It's supposed to be the state court system is supposed to be designed the same way. It's supposed to mirror it. However, we know it's a lot of times not mirrored that way.
Okay, so then let me say this. When I got my job with NASA and I went in for my interview, it was me and 7 people at the table. It was set up like a courtroom situation. And they interviewed me for 2.5 hours. So
Wow.
the higher you move up in any type of business, it becomes a courtroom situation.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to answer the question to the 7 people on that board.
Jibber jabber, to answer your question, that's not plead no contest. Plead no contest is they'll formally tell you your charges, and then they'll ask you to make a plea, guilty or not guilty. Or they have what you just mentioned, no contest, which you would say, I'm not going to contest to my charge, whether I'm guilty or not guilty. And then basically it's like a guilty plea, but you're not saying you're guilty, and you're not going to fight it. That's what they're saying when the no contest is. It's a big difference than literally when you go into a courtroom and you plea, you literally have to say word for word what happened. I had a personal situation, right, where I was in, and it was me, and I don't want to get into the details, but I'll give you guys the premise. I told the truth, and the judge basically believed what I said because I admitted to a crime that was me, it was totally me. I was totally out of pocket, right? And the judge basically believed me, but the way that the officer lied, and the prosecutor had the officer statement. So the judge looked at it and was like, well, he looked at the prosecutor like, your officer is lying. I don't believe your officer. I believe what he's telling me. He's telling me what happened. Factually, he's admitting to what happened, but I believe him. So basically, he quote unquote scolded the prosecutor right there in open court. And this happens a lot. I mean, if you, like I said, hopefully we can one day get Judge Joe Brown on. Judges, they believe they run their courtroom and they believe they control their courtroom. And when you deal in the criminal aspects of the law, it's a lot of things that go on, proceedings, motions that go on that you have to pay attention. You have to know what's going on because they will lace you up. And it is a slogan that they say in criminal law that most people don't know. Ignorance is no excuse for not knowing. So when we're dealing with this stuff, like Sister Azima used the analogy when she got pulled over, she didn't say, "Oh, I didn't know I was breaking the law," because that wouldn't have been an excuse. She said, "Show me where it's a law."
And that became a problem.
That became the problem. Yeah, it's very important, the wording. Sister Azima been telling us. I know. Sometimes we don't have the money to get that black law, but it's very important as let's just say travelers when you're traveling about, going to get your groceries, going to and from work, general traveling, that you know how to deal with these people when you're traveling, what to say, what not to say. You know how it is when the police say to you, they pull you over, and the first thing they ask you is, "Where you going?" None of your business. It's none of your damn business where I'm going. Just think about that. Law enforcement is pulling you over and asking you where you going. It's none of your business where I'm going. Why are you pulling me over? Because they got to have what they call PC. They got to have probable cause to pull you over. They can't just pull you over for nothing. Some states vary whether you got your seatbelt on, like Sister Azima said. Some states, that's not probable cause to pull you over. Cell phones, at one time where I live at, was not probable cause to pull you over. You get caught, you have your cell phone to your head in New York City, that's probable cause literally to pull you over. So it's very important for us to know. Definitely when we call that system corrupt and it's one thing to call the system corrupt, knowing that historically it hasn't worked for us, but then we continue to not know.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get you to understand, honestly understand, because you already understand it, you understand how it works, is that it isn't a system, it's policy, codes, regulations, and procedures. It's the way you run a business. America is a business. The United States is a business within the continent of North America. So therefore, when they pull you over, they are following their procedures. That's why you have to have a video camera now, a dash cam in your car, just in case you get pulled over, it's recording. Okay. It allows you to be safe. Like when you go on a job interview, just enacted the no cell phone. The same thing here in Missouri.
They just, you know what's funny, Sister Azima?
What?
The last time they tried to do that in Pennsylvania, it got voted down.
Okay.
Now it got voted up that if you get caught with that cell phone driving in your hand, it's a heavy fine. I
don't think everybody knows why the cell phone is a big issue right now. Are you all aware? It has to do with child trafficking. With so many people that have come in here, and many of the children, which is what the Democrats are not talking about, is that a lot of the children came across the border. Pretty close to 383,000 children came in, undocumented, unescorted, not with family, not with parents. You could see in the the cameras, the night vision cameras, where they were throwing children over the fence. Babies, little children, okay? Didn't care if they made it or not. The people on the other side's job was to get these children and traffic them where they have to go. So they want to be sure, one, you speak American, you speak the English language, that you can read the English language, that all your documentation say that you are a naturalized citizen of the United States of America, and that you cannot be speaking any other language except English when you're in the continental United States. And that's to make sure that they will be able to pick up any type of human trafficking transactions that are going on. So don't think it's because you on the phone talking your smack to your person. It's because we lost 383,000 children. That's a lot of little children. And they came during the Biden and Obama administration. We don't know
It,
where these
it,
children
it,
are.
we cannot um, overemphasize that a lot of stuff that we will have conversations about, or we see that's going on, all this stuff intertwines with each other. And understand that this quote unquote immigration policy beef, that's the trafficking is the most major issue. It's not the cartels, it's not the illegals, the gangs. Really, what it is that just like a cartel may feel like it's drugs, people are being sold.
Slavery has come back full force.
Preferably children are being sold. So it's very important that we understand the signs. One of the it was a project that I was involved in. It's called the Red Sand Project, and it's basically is that you bring awareness to the trafficking aspect, and you see, like they say, you see something, you say something. You
Mhm,
see a lot of it. You see signs where people are reaching out for help, and you
mhm,
never know. So I know we are people that usually mind our own damn business,
mhm.
but know that sometimes you see it, and you just I would tell you as a human being, you should say something.
Mhm,
But like Sister Azima said, she brought up a point, you guys, back to her point when she mentions this corporation
mhm,
and why it's being ran. For
mhm.
any of you guys that have, and I'm quite sure everybody has had a ticket before, if you ever sit in municipal court, if you see how much money they make, even if the judge, what's he do? I'm going to throw this ticket out and
Mhm,
you're just going to pay court cost
mhm,
$25. So he
mhm.
may throw out in the course of a day 100 tickets, court cost $25.
He made his salary for that day.
And he's a part-time judge. Definitely, and we're
Right.
talking about these urban municipalities.
Mhm,
They
mhm,
just sit in court one day. Like they may have, like for example, they may have court every Tuesday and Thursday, two
mhm,
days a week.
mhm,
If you go there in the morning by 9 to 4,
mhm,
if you listen to the court now, they may have a trial. You may have 8 or 9 people that may bring their private attorney,
mhm,
but the most of them are. If you had a moving violation, I don't know how it is in every state, right? But in certain states, a moving violation will get you points.
Yes.
Most people do not want points on their license. So
Mhm,
they'll come to you, well, you ran a red light on such and such date. The prosecutor tell the public defender you have or whatever, well, take $100 fine and we won't take points off your license. Of course, you knew you ran the red light. You wasn't paying attention that day. So you don't want to lose points on your license. So now you're paying $100 fine, $25 court cost for the
okay, so
paperwork.
hold that thought, everybody. Now let me walk you over to a sales room where you go buy a car. Think about it. What that defender did, that lawyer in the courtroom, is exactly what you see when you go buy a car. The guy will walk around, he'll look at you or the lady, and they'll talk and they'll bring you in and they'll give you their price. The purpose of that is for you to negotiate. Okay. If you don't know how to negotiate, please go take some, go on YouTube, Google, whatever, and learn how to negotiate. Okay. So that guy's going to sell you a car. And he's saying, well, the car is going to be 23,000. You know that you don't have 23,000. You know you're not going to qualify to get a loan. But with the old car you had and some other money that you got saved up, you got about 15, 16,000, right? So they will barter with you, make it seem like you really got it down when you really know when you go and do the Kelly Blue Book that the car is only worth 12. Okay. They're going to get the 15 out of you. They're going to make it seem like you really negotiated them down. So they got paid that day.
The down
It's
payment
all
means
about
nothing.
business.
That's
All
right.
about business. So what I'm telling you is that the Constitution says you can do all the business you want, but the minute you come into this jurisdiction, you have to follow law. You can't deviate from law. And that's why we see the tension that we see right now in America. Because what he's doing is basically bringing it back to center. When you come to center, you incorporate both genders, masculine and feminine. And that's what Trump's doing. He's pulling us back to the place where the feminine energy plays a role. Because we have never played a role for the last 5,000 years. We have been bought and sold. We have been maligned, raped, beat up. Okay. And so now you have an opportunity to be able to speak, to say something, to make sure that the laws are that law is reflective of you. The law will reflect both masculine and feminine energy in the law. Policy codes and regulations don't have to, because they are strictly patrilineal, masculine based. It doesn't matter if it's a female judge. You'll even hear them say, well, I can't go beyond this because I have to follow this particular ruling, this regulation, this statute, this policy, this code. Okay. And anything that's codified is coming right out of the Vatican, because that's the first place where codification came. That's what codes are. They are giving you a decimal point, 1.12, 1.2, 1.312. They are putting a number on it so that they have a reference point to go back to. And then this is the only time you're going to hear them sit and argue about law. Why? If the law is just this, you don't need to argue about it. But you
You guys,
can.
you guys notice how the 14th Amendment, this birthright citizenship, and then we're going to keep talking about it, because everything that we see now that's going on is a distraction
Yes.
to what may happen with this birthright citizenship.
Because right now the Democrats are courting, and they have said it. If you don't go in, I know a lot of you working, so you can't watch the Senate hearings in the morning. Let me tell you, you will see those Democrats. They walk in there 20 deep, and they're going to sit down next to the politicians, the Republicans, and they're trying to smooth them into voting this a certain way. And Trump is like, Pam Bondi, don't let that happen. And so that's where we are. And the people that they are using, that the oligarchy system is using, are people that look like us. And we are fighting harder than anybody. Remember, we talked about democracy. Democracy means to be ruled by the majority. Is that fair? Remember in Star Trek where Spock said the needs of the many outweighs the needs of the few? Well, that's what democracy is about. And if you have people who are mentally skewed being the majority, what happens to those of us that are sane? We lose our voice because it's all based on policy codes, statutes and regulations. You will have a lot of tyranny coming out of democracy. Because the majority isn't always right. Just look back to the Biden years. Go back to Obama. He was the one that passed the law where homosexual people can legally marry. Nobody was thinking where they would go with your transgender population. And that just became a mountain of problems that just spilled all out. It's not, and so what I'm saying is that when you start learning, you're learning. That's the whole point. The whole point of this is for you to learn. I always say, go and research this and research it diligently. And as you research it, you'll begin to discern what it is you need to know and how it directly affects you. Because see, this spills over into everything. It spills over into medicine. It spills over into education. It spills over into your money. Because we're operating under a corporation with policy, statutes, okay, and regulations and codes. So you'll just see it everywhere. And it's what it leads to is the undercurrent of distrust. And you all can't tell me that you don't have that undercurrent, that whenever you go step out the door and have to take care of business, you don't trust the outcome unless you know you're going to fight for it. So it creates this unrelenting undercurrent of mistrust.
One example I want to ask you guys was, and this is for anybody in the chat, I don't want you to have to Google this, but I want you to just ask yourself when Sister Azima mentions Constitution, codes, regulations, policies, and statutes. We all know what happened on Jekyll Island, where the most powerful people in the country met to devise what we call the banking system.
Mm-hmm.
Was that constitutional?
No.
Was that treachery?
Yes.
Was that anarchy?
Yes.
Was that basically circumventing the Constitution? Just think about it objectively. Even if you don't know about what happened on Jekyll Island, do some research on it and think about what they did. These were not all elected officials. Most of them were in the private sector.
All of them were in the private sector.
Yeah. And think about what they did. They literally came up with a scheme to start the banking system. And think about how the banking system is so engraved in our culture now.
And you think it's important. And not only that, look what the banking system did. It created credit. Credit is debt. Credit is debt. I don't care what there is nothing that
and
you
just like Sister Azima said, there was no such thing as credit before Ronald Reagan.
Thank you. It didn't exist.
Think about that for us that do things with credit. Do anything. Anybody got a credit card? You got lights, and they'll turn your lights on until you get, they'll send you the bill. And so it wasn't like that. The whole system changed. Think about it. Pre-Ronald Reagan, there was no such thing as a credit score, credit bureaus, credit.
Okay, and the reason is because your dollar was backed by gold. Once they remove the gold standard, how do you keep um, money afloat? That is when we started. We went from having a 30-hour work week to almost 60 hours now. And when somebody says, "Oh, you have a 560, you got an 800 credit score," add $1,000 behind that. That's what they're telling you. They're telling you that you have the ability to manage a large debt.
For those under 60, I had a conversation today with a gentleman. He's 72 years old, right? And we had a conversation, and the conversation led to what Sister Azima has been explaining to us. And he was in, older Italian guy, grew up in Brooklyn, really, really poor, second generation immigrant.
Mm,
His grandfather came over through Ellis Island,
mm,
the whole shebang, the whole story. So y'all know I'm interested in this guy. So we talking, we rapping. We was together for a few hours. So we talking, having a conversation, and he used to work for what is now Chase Bank.
mm,
Made high six figures, right? A
mm,
year before he retired. And he was telling me something about what Sister Azima was telling us before about the trick of the 401k. And when he said it to me, I had a smile on my face because I was like, she been telling us this. And it's like, for those of us that don't understand, like the 401k, a lot of people gonna benefit from 401k, but realize that at a certain point, and I said this to him, and Sister Azima may laugh when I say it to her, the boomers tricked the boomers.
mm-hmm.
The boomers tricked themselves
Yeah,
because
we.
the boomers didn't have 401k at first.
Mm-hmm.
They had real retirement funds.
Yes.
Like Sister Azima been explaining to us, these big companies had funds that when you retire, you cash out, you'll be good. You'll
Mm-hmm.
be good. Instead, a lot of them went to 401k. And the gentleman I was talking to was telling me, and I'm driving y'all, and I'm sitting there and I'm laughing my butt off because Sister Azima been talking about it, how the boomers tricked the boomers. They didn't trick us, they tricked themselves out of this, like out of
Mm-hmm.
their own money. And he was telling me when he left Chase, right before he left Chase,
Mm-hmm.
they were trying to get all these people to do the 401k, to turn their funds into a 401k.
Mm-hmm.
And they have what you call at big corporations, they have what you call legal counsel. Legal counsel, you guys, they're this short of a lawyer. The only thing that difference between a legal counsel at a corporation and a lawyer is the legal counsel will never step in a courtroom. But they know the law and they know the codes, regulations, policies of that particular company.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the legal counsel guy was like, if you guys get rid of your retirement fund,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna sue y'all for everything y'all got, and I'm gonna represent them for free. So it really made me reflective of understanding how a lot of things that has been going on
Mm-hmm.
with our elected officials,
Mm-hmm.
they've really been um, they've been doing the very same thing that they've been accusing other politicians of doing, and that they say that they're supposed to be fighting against. They're corrupt,
They're
and
very.
their corruption, they're making money, and their corruption because they are not all of them,
Mm-hmm.
but most of them
Mm-hmm.
are stealing.
Mm-hmm.
They're stealing from us money that belongs to the people. But anyway, I ain't want to take too
Can
much from.
now on the heels of that, can you play George Carlin? Because he really talks about the oligarchy. He says you don't have to identify anymore. You already know. We went to the same schools. We grew up in the same neighborhoods, and I love it. I love what he said. If you have any questions, put it in the chat.
There is no national conspiracy to buy elections and control America.
You don't need a formal conspiracy.
Right.
When interests converge, these people went to the same universities and fraternities. They're on the same boards of directors. They're in the same country clubs. They have like interests. They don't need to call a meeting. They know what's good for them, and they're getting it. And there used to be 7 oil companies. There are now 3. It will soon be 2. The things that matter in this country have been reduced in choice. There are 2 political parties. There are a handful of insurance companies. There are about 6 or 7 information things. But if you want a bagel, there are 23 flavors because you have the illusion. You have the illusion of choice.
Holy shit.
Okay.
He said what?
Okay, so listen to what George Carlin said. He said, you have the illusion. When we were growing up, there was Philco, there was Shell, there was British Petroleum, Conoco, can't think of the other ones, but we did have 7. Now you have Shell and you have British Petroleum that owns the American Motor Oil Company.
And Shell basically got bogarted because Venezuela, Hugo Chavez ran Shell. Venezuela ran Shell. And after they killed him. After they killed him and got him up out of there, then Shell was able to do business freely in America.
Right, right. And so what I'm saying is that the corruption is standard. Don't be shocked. It is how most European countries and kings and queens ran their countries with deceit, deception, corruption. Okay. And think about Anne Boleyn. She was killed. Mary quite contrary. That's a little story, but believe me, they chopped off her head and
You
put
brought
it
me
in the
back.
water.
You brought me back to my youth.
Okay, so remember, these are the people who sent their mercenaries to other parts of the world, and they sent their
Just
criminals.
think about that, you guys. Just think about that in the chat, right? Think about Canada, where I don't know if you guys know, if you're a convicted felon in America, you could never go to Canada.
No.
If you're a convicted felon in America, you could never go to Canada. And in order to get to Canada, you would have to probably be an athlete, a big entertainer, or somebody that has so much press around them when they're in Canada. Canada will literally have to give you a pass. But the average person, if you've ever been convicted felon in America, you cannot go to Canada. So let's look at a place, any country. Now imagine America letting out all their jails and sending them to one country. That's what Europe did to America.
That's what it did to America, and it did it to parts of South America, because they sent many of the Nazis, not just sympathizers, but the high-ranking officials. They let them go down there to Venezuela, Brazil, places like that. And then you also had it in Australia. So this is what they did. And it wasn't just England. Spain did it. France did it. And this is how you would promise them the opportunity to freedom once they got there. They would no longer be, they're still a criminal, but they would no longer have criminal charges against them. Because as far as they were concerned, if they made the voyage and survived, they could do whatever they wanted to do. And so you have to think about that. They went into areas where the people were never expecting anything like that. I'm not saying that we didn't have our own rifts and beefs among, you know, factions of tribes, clans, people, nations, but nothing to this magnitude. And so what you learn is that you learn to be deceitful. You're not trying to be, you don't realize it, but you learn to be deceitful. And that's why when Americans go places, they either like you or they hate you as an American.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in between. There was a time it was in between. And it was a time they would look at black people and go like, "Ooh, we know what you all been up to," and they liked us. Now they're very leery of us because they'll either like us or they're going to hate us.
And what George Carlin said, and think about the brother, I don't know his name, who was trying to stop George Carlin from talking about conspiracy. And if you think about the word conspiracy and you look it up and who defined the word conspiracy, it'll really make you scratch your head that common folk literally denounce conspiracies because common folk should never denounce them. But think about what George Carlin said, that yeah, you don't need a formal meeting. You don't need a telephone call or to have like-minded interests. And basically
Mhm.
that form of system of, if we have this illusion that with all these millions of people here that you got a bunch of free thought.
You don't.
But the reality is that most of the time you have what they, and I'll just use it for the sake of the conversation, is you have that liberal way of thinking
Hmm.
or you have the conservative way of thinking. And
Hmm.
even those that say that they ascribe to independent way of thinking, people look at you like you're crazy because you have an independent, objective way of thinking. You're flexible. You can understand that today you may feel like vanilla ice cream. Tomorrow you may be like, I don't want vanilla. I want chocolate or
Hmm.
butter pecan.
Hmm.
Your objectivism, you have an objective thought, you having free thoughts, you having uh, ways about you that are flexible. People look at you like you're crazy
Hmm.
because they believe that you're supposed to be a monolith. Like for us, y'all
Hmm.
know what they say. Black people have to be Democrat. They just have to be Democrat. They just have to. Could you not be Democrat? They literally will mock you. Some white people will do it, which is even crazier. A white person will mock you because you're not Democrat. Because
And
they're from what I see, their thing is that they want to prove that the whole Republican Party, and if you're a Republican, you're a racist. And then you got the Republican Party that will look at you and say you're crazy, you're a libtard, because you look at things through a racial lens, and they don't believe that race. Right now, some of them don't believe that race plays a factor in anything. So I say that to say, if you think about what George Carlin was saying, it's the truth. We've went to this totalitarian way of thought where it's just cut and dry, and that Constitution that those people wrote wasn't for that.
no, it was, and they didn't write it. It was adopted. It was
Yeah,
adapted from many of the indigenous populations, Confederate rules and regulations, and their treaties. So that was a very important piece for them. And then remember when I told you, I said when I was growing up, a faggot was supposed to have been a homosexual, but it was really a bundle of sticks. And if you had a faggot, you were a wealthy person because you could have
yeah.
heat, you could cook. So you have people who massage the language often, every day, every minute of the day. They change the value of the meaning. Then they get to be the gatekeepers. And what's happening is that so many of us had reached the boiling point. The pressure cooker, the lid is blowing off, and what they're trying to do is keep the lid on and release the valve. But the valve is broken and the steam is just coming out because people are now looking at it and going, wait a minute. I have the knowledge, but I've never applied it. And now they are applying the knowledge that they have. And they go like, oh, this doesn't make sense. This is absolutely irrational. And that's when you realize that the system, all of the system, the 7 pillars of what makes a society, we talked about that, have eradicated the feminine aspect. Law brings it back, whether it's natural law, organic law, constitutional law, okay, the law of peace, divine law, it brings the two together. And when it brings it together, it allows you to have a clear delineation of what's going on. You can see things clearly. I want to quote something. There's a brother on television. His name is Roderick Martin. He has the show called The Big Why. Okay. And that's WHY, The Big Why. And he's all into what I'm into, space, UFOs, aliens, all that kind of thing. He made a statement, and I just want to give him his props because this statement means something to me when I hear it. He says, your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. Your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. This is Roderick Martin. He's from his own podcast called The Big Why, WHY. He's been on Forbidden Knowledge. He's been on Gaia. He's been on quite a few other programs. And when I heard him say this, I had to capture that because this is what has happened to us. Not just the past 100, 200, but for the last 5,280 years, the system has been in place to blind you. So therefore, whatever you saw was not correct. And I'm just going to throw this out. No, I'm not going to throw it out here. I want you to go back and look at the holy wars. You had the Muslims had them, the Jewish people had them, and the Christians had them. The holy wars. What kind of God has a war all the time? And then when you study it, see what they were given. They were given kill off the men, enslave the boys, and take the women for your personal gain. So what I'm trying to get you to see is that we have to operate under law. And that's why you see so many people yelling, Miss Jeffries, Representative Jeffries, and you got the other person, and then you got Miss Crockett, and you got AOC. They're doing that because that means that how they got to be wealthy is in direct violation of all the laws. You and I would go to jail.
And even Rodney brought it up. Like when you think about that, you had some younger gentlemen that literally created an app that tracks all of the politicians on what they put their money on, what stocks they put their money on, and this app and the people who follow this app closely has made money with it. Just the mere thought of that and understanding what's going on should make us all pause for a second and realize like the level of corruption is so embedded. It's embedded in politics, and this is not something whether we want to say we follow the Constitution or not. It was not something that, first of all, it was not something that was here.
No.
It wasn't supposed to happen by the tribal laws that was here,
Mm-hmm.
and even the Constitution that they adopted, like Sister Azima said. This was never supposed to happen by the elected officials under no circumstances. So when they make mention that somebody's going against the Constitution, just realize that it's just rhetoric to play on your emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And we've heard this word recently that gets famous, where people have said, "Well, you got to have some emotional intelligence." This may be the one time in history that the majority have no emotional intelligence.
Yes, I agree.
Everybody's emotional.
Yes,
You see something on the news, you just react.
Mm-hmm.
No action.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing the guy said to me today. Like we used to be a country that was verbs, that did things with verbs. Now we're a country that do things with nouns. So I said to him, I said, "What you mean by that?" He said, "We're a country of talkers."
Yeah, we are.
He said, "Before we were action people." He said, my generation, we did action. He said, whatever you was into, you didn't do too much talking. You didn't do too much signal calling. You just did what you thought was the proper action.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting concept this man had today.
Mm-hmm.
But anything else, Sister Azima?
Yeah, there's an old adage. I don't know where it came from, but I've heard it passed around, and I may have it not totally correct, but I think it fits the time right now. It says, tough men create easy times. Easy times create soft men. Soft men create hard times.
Mm.
Tough men create easy times. Easy times create soft men. Soft men create hard times. Think about that, and think about what Roderick Martin said. Your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. We're trying to teach you how to think. And once you think how to apply the knowledge you know, so that you won't be blind, and you'll be able to step away from the madness, because this is madness right now. You can step away from the madness and see how you need to direct yourself, your family, okay? If you're married or not married and have children, how you direct these children. Because you see, they are the future. And I don't think people think about that. The way I raised my daughters 40 years ago is exactly how I wanted them to be. Because I did not want them to be an empty wagon that makes a lot of noise but has no value. So we're just looking at these things. We have an opportunity to learn. As we learn and the knowledge comes to you, apply it. It's great that you can watch how to change a tire on YouTube, but until you go out and try it, you'll never know.
You go out there and try it, and you got cars driving past you 45 miles per hour.
Right.
You ain't got the proper jack.
Mm-hmm.
Your hands is slipping off that daggone jack. Yeah. You got the jack up under the car, and listen. You'd be amazed. It's funny you brought that analogy up, but great conversation. I had a thought, Sister Azima, and you guys in the chat. Just think like, I'm gonna keep talking about how the 14th Amendment and what they decide is going to be big. Just think how many people have been here, second and third generation, and their grandparents were anchor babies.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be affected because now, when you talk about what they decide on the 14th Amendment, what SCOTUS decides to do, now we have to understand, is it going to be retroactive?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be official? Is it going to be a start date? So we got to be mindful of what's going on, like I said, and understanding that when we have these conversations, definitely on Tuesday, the premise of these conversations, remember, started when I asked Sister Azima a question about fascism and Marxism and these two ideologies. And in order to understand these ideologies, we had to go all the way back to understanding what this land, Turtle Island, as they say, was on. And this is where Chief Mimi has been explaining to us. And she's going to explain, hopefully next week or the week after, she's going to explain a very interesting event that happened. I'm not even going to tell y'all. I'll just let her do it. I ain't going to spill the beans. But a very interesting event that may have happened in our history that really, really speaks about what Sister Azima been talking, the evil, the corruption that these people will do to stop you from knowing who you are.
But you have the ability, since you have Republicans in office, you do have the ability to encourage them to stand with Trump. You can send them a letter, you can send them an email, send it to your state senators. You have 2. Send it to your representatives. And the representatives are based on the size of your state, and let them know you're standing with, and you don't even have to stand with Trump, but you're standing with this administration to get certain things done. Okay. We're going to talk about all the actions that you can take because there are solutions. That's the whole point. But I just wanted to lay the foundation. So once you see the foundation, you can decide if you want stones in it or if you want to have cobblestones or bricks or whatever in your foundation to allow you to move forward, and then knowing how to access the resources that are there for you before all of this is eliminated. So, and they're trying to eliminate it, but it won't happen. It won't happen because we are now in the consciousness of the female. And the female and male have to come together in order to make things happen. That's the only way you can have change. And it doesn't mean you got to go out and marry a man or whatever, or marry a female. It means that within yourself, your masculine knowledge and your feminine knowledge will come together to allow you to be able to take the correct actions that's needed. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to tell everybody to go back in time to when the melanated people started the Republican Party and why they started the Republican Party.
Yes.
There was a time in our history where there was not a Republican Party.
Right, and we started it.
The melanated people started the Republican Party. We need to go all the way back and understand what was going on, because everything is context. Understand what was going on and why they started that party. And then it'll give you a glimpse of the moment that we're at now, because I'll just say that Trump is a very interesting character. I'll say that. I'll leave it at that, you know. But until next week, hey, Jibber Jabber, I am not gonna give you guys a hint. Because if I can get Chief Mimi to talk about what I really want her to talk about next week or the week after, I'm not gonna talk. I'm gonna just let her go.
Yep, that's all she's gonna do.
Because I'll just say that because I can't give you guys no hint. But appreciate you guys. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Thanks you guys for all the support that you've been showing the channel. And it does not go unnoticed. I'm really thankful and grateful. Hold on 1 second. Yeah. You know what's funny, Jibber Jabber? And as they say, that's how the universe works. Before we went live, Sister Azima was having an issue with Google and how they keep changing stuff with Google, and it's hard to find stuff. hopefully I'll give you guys some information in the next week or so. I'll talk to a buddy of mine and I'll be able to get you past that Google search engine and get you to the dark web.
That'd be fun.
And know that, yeah. And I
That's
can show
great.
you how to bypass it and get through that stuff. But until then, appreciate you guys for support. And we'll be looking forward to talking to y'all soon.